Hello, I'm Cass. I'm so excited to share with you my December wrap-up. So all the books that I read in December. I managed to read 11, and most of these were 4 or 5 stars. Jumping right in and starting with Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This was the Chaos X Cast book pick for November. However, I ended up reading it on the 1st of December, just speed read it in one sitting, and I was not expecting to like this book so much. So essentially we're following 2 Scythe apprentices, and Scythes in this world are tasked with killing people, but it's called gleaning because the world has basically mastered immortality. And so in order to keep the population in control, the Scythes have to, glean people in order to keep everything level for the world isn't overpopulated. Now it follows 2 Scythes. Citra and Rowan are apprentices under Scythe Faraway, or Faraday? Faraway? Scythe Farquaad, I don't know. It is basically them learning how to become a Scythe and then political turmoil within the Scythedom. It's really, really good. It really makes you question a lot of things, and it was a very interesting read. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this book so much, but I definitely did. And then that kind of leads us to the second book that I read, Thunderhead, which is the second book in the Scythedom series, or Scythe series, or I don't know, the Arc of the Scythe. Arc of a Scythe. And this follows Citra and Rowan again, however, in kind of a different situation, and there's way more political turmoil happening in this book within the Scythedom. It is very interesting to see how Citra and Rowan's path has kind of diverged from what you might initially think. The ending of this book is absolutely wild. I just started the 3rd book today. I haven't quite finished it yet. And it is just so interesting. You get to meet one of my favorite characters, which is Scythe Curie. She's just a fascinating character. And the villain in these books is insane, and just the political games that they're playing, it really just makes you question some things for sure. But I gave Scythe a 5-star and I gave Thunderhead a 4-star just because it was a little bit slower to get into, but I still enjoyed it regardless. Staying on the same vein as like book club books, this was the Wyverns and Words book club book, which is a book club I run with Katie is reading. And this was Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. I once again kind of went in with like very little expectations on this book. I figured I might enjoy it from kind of what I've heard, and there's dragons, so automatically I'm like, yes, dragons. I like those, therefore I'm going to enjoy the story. The main issues that I had with this book was the inconsistency with how many time jumps there were. It seemed like suddenly she was some great archer, and then suddenly she was this great warrior, and I would have liked to see more of her training and more of the romance, because the 2-year time gap we got was separating the romance. So it was friends to lovers-ish, sort of, but it was done very hastily, and I wanted to see more of their kind of chemistry. That being said, the writing was stunning, especially for a debut novel, and I did buy the second one, mostly because the cover, but also I want to know what happens next, because this book actually wraps up where I don't think you necessarily would need to read the second book, simply because most of the loose ends are tied up. The plot twists in this book are very exciting and unpredictable in my opinion, so it makes kind of the enjoyment a little bit higher because you can't really see it coming. You might be able to piece together situations, but I know I wasn't able to. It was definitely an enjoyable read, but with the time jumps and just like a few other minor things, I did give it a 4.5, but I still definitely recommend it. And it has dragons. Like, what more could you ask for? Next is a really, really cute one that I ended up reading in one day, and that is XOXO by Axio. This is just the dust jacket because I actually gave this book. Now, I didn't give it away. Okay, I like this book too much to give it away, but I let my dance captain borrow it. She wanted to read it, and so I finished it and gave it to her to borrow. And it's basically hello? English. It's basically about this cello player, or violin. I kind of forget what instrument she plays, but I think a violin, and she currently lives in America, and she's working on trying to get into college. Basically, her grandmother gets sick, and her mom's going to go to Korea to support her during this time, and she ends up also going along and meeting this boy at a karaoke bar, and Turns out that boy was an idol. So it's a cute little K-pop romance. I think it was very well done in the fact that it is about K-pop, and I'm not saying K-pop is cringe because I really like K-pop and that culture is very interesting to me, and so I'm not about to like diss this book. But I think it was very well done where it wasn't cringy in any form. Like, it was just cute. It wasn't like overly shoved in your face. Like, the main character didn't even really know about K-pop. And I think it's very digestible as a read, even if you know nothing about K-pop. I think it's still a really cute romance book. And it does explain K-pop terms. As someone who might not know anything about K-pop, might not understand, for example, what idols are, what debuting means, what like certain terms mean, like maknae, things like that. And so I think it's very digestible. It was just like fun and cute. Yeah, I did give it 4 stars. It's a K-pop romance book. Like, it was so fun. I will definitely reread it because it was just so cute. But it was just a very fast-paced, just kind of lose yourself into the book and enjoy it while you're there type of time. And the cover is stunning. I love the cover so much. Then we have The Early Years by John Flanagan. We have The Tournament at Gorlan and The Battle of Hackham Heath. These are books 1 and 2 of the Ranger's Apprentice prequel duology called Early Years. Kind of a mouthful there. This follows Halt in Crowley and their reforming of the Rangers Corps after our main villain Morgareth breaks it up, and the Ranger Corps is essentially a group of 50 archers throughout the kingdom that are elite archers tasked with protecting the kingdom. Since the kingdom is sort of in the in-between of war, it's very fascinating to get to read about characters and the situations that you heard about in the main Ranger's Apprentice series, but following from their perspective. I love Halt and Crowley's friendship, and I love getting to know all the other little renegade rangers in the Corps, and yeah, it's just a really fun read. This completed my, I think this is year 4 of me rereading every single book in the Ranger's Apprentice series that I've tracked on Goodreads. Like, I've reread them many times before, but of the times I've tracked, this is the 4th time. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for next year to do it all over again and reread them again. But yeah, it's just a fun time. And The Tournament at Gorlan is very, like, if you've seen A Knight's Tale, it kind of feels like that because there's jousting, there's fighting, like, it's a tournament at Gorlan. And then there's political situations happening in the kingdom. And yeah, it's just a really fun time. Both of them I give 5 stars. I always give Ranger's Apprentice books 5 stars. And yeah, that's my brief little summary on it. Then I reread A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was to prepare to read A Light in the Flame by Jennifer L. Armentrout, because oh my gosh, did I remember nothing from this over 600-page book. It is a brick. And I read this beginning of the month before I visited my friend Lexi, and it was just such a fun time to get to see her and to read together. And I finished this before the trip. I forgot how much I really liked Sarah and Ash in this book. I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of From Blood and Ash with Poppy and whatever the fuck his name is. I don't remember his name. And if you weren't a fan of that, but kind of liked how the world and the characters were, I think you should give A Shadow in the Ember a try, because their romance is just so much better done, in my opinion, than Poppy and whatever his name is. I literally don't remember his name. I really love Sarah's character. She's just such a badass. And Jennifer L. Armentrout definitely knows how to write, like, the badass main female characters. Yeah, I just really enjoyed the romance. And then same on to A Light in the Flame. I will say my main problem with this book was how repetitive this book was in the beginning. For the first, I would say like 1/3 of the book, Sarah would be told to do something and stay somewhere, and then she wouldn't stay somewhere and go out and like interfere with shit. And then it would just be a cycle like 3 or 4 times. And it got old after like the 2nd time of it happening. I was like, deja vu, we've definitely been here. But it developed the world a little bit more, and it's slowly leading into kind of catching up with the backstory that occurs and we're told about in From Blood and Ash. I am invested in this series. I didn't mean to be, because I do diss on Jennifer L. Armentrout. I still do believe she needs an editor, but regardless, I enjoyed it, and I always enjoy reading with friends as well. Both of these were 4 stars. I would say this one's rated a little bit lower than this one just because how repetitive it is, but I still liked it regardless. Next, I read Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard by Tom Felton. Now, this was his autobiography, and like all autobiographies, if there is an Audible version where the author themselves read the book, you already know that is the option I'm going to choose. And so that is what I did. I checked it out off Libby after waiting a few weeks because there was kind of a hold, or there was kind of a wait list on it, and I enjoyed it so much. He really opens up and is vulnerable about his life near the end of the book, and near the beginning it is fun, it's lighthearted. You get to hear behind the scenes with certain characters from the Harry Potter universe and their actors, not characters, whoops, about actors in the Harry Potter universe, and just certain behind the scenes about certain scenes, and it's just very fascinating. I will warn you to check trigger warnings because he does deal with some sensitive topics, but one of my favorite moments is when he was talking about Alan Rickman, and it was the scene in the Great Hall. Ignore this section, skip forward a few seconds if you want to not, I guess, spoil it, but it's just a fun little like behind the scenes fact. But it was a scene with Alan Rickman, and I think the last movie where he kind of took over Hogwarts and he was walking out and he had his cloak billowing behind him dramatically like he always does. And before the scene, they start shooting the scene, he turns around and goes, "Don't step on my fucking cloak." And just hearing Tom Felton read that in a Severus Snape voice was so funny to me. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I typically give autobiographies 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and if you're a fan of Harry Potter or like Tom Felton as an actor, I definitely recommend it. It was just like a fun time, and it's always cool to see and read behind the scenes. Then I read Guild by Raven Kennedy, and this was the last book I read of 2023, which is a little unfortunate because I would have liked to end on a higher note. However, I've heard the Plated Prisoner series gradually gets better, and I've heard that like book 3 is the best. Oh my gosh, I went into this book knowing nothing except for it was a Midas retelling, like a loose Midas retelling, and there I listened to the audiobook, stuck my earbuds in at work, and I was like setting up and cleaning, and I was just like, oh, we're starting like this, okay. Oh, we're still going? Okay. This is very smut heavy, which I was like not ready for, like right off the bat. It was just like a king with 7 women and 1 guy. I was like, oh, I was not ready. It is, I think it's a dark fantasy is what it's titled under, and oh my gosh, our main character Arin just needs to get her shit together and realize that she's worth so much more than how she's being treated by her love interest, which there's no romance anywhere. I'm not seeing it. I can't find it. I looked with binoculars and I was like, where? Because every character I thought might be the love interest either wasn't or might have been, and so I'm a little confused. I literally wouldn't have picked up the series except for Katie was talking about it and talking very highly about the 3rd one. And she said just to get through the 1st one. So that was my goal, is to like just get through the 1st book, which is what I did. And I'll continue the Plated Prisoner series sometimes next year. I know the 4th book doesn't come out until like May, but I'm not too worried about it unless I get like super invested. But we'll see, because right now I'm not. But everyone has said it gets better. I'll be the judge of that. Hopefully in January or February. And I did end up giving Guild 2.5 stars just because I really was not invested. So, yikes. Moving on. And then, ladies and gentlemen, to wrap up this wrap-up, we have the Wiseman Sphere. Now, if you're really confused about why it needed some grand reveal announcement situation, apparently, because it popped up in my Snapchat memory recap, apparently, I have been reading this book since February 28th. February 28th. It took me 11 months to finish this book, and I think that's just like a little bit ridiculous. I thought it was 9, and I was like, oh, maybe it's 10. No, it was 11 months. Well, I mean, closer to 10, because, you know, it was the last day of February when I started this book. It is so incredible. I can rant and rave about this book all day. Patrick Rothfuss, I love his writing so much. He just knows how to develop characters and how to write beautiful sentences. I wish I had this man's talent to write sentences as prettily as he does. I don't really remember the beginning because, like I said, it took me 11 months to finish this book. But I do remember there was like some sort of quippy argument about a lute, which I love because I have a lute tattoo from this book, but that's besides the point. And then the adventures at the end with Tempe are probably one of my favorite adventures in this novel. So essentially we have our main character, Kvothe, who is telling the story of his life. So you get flashbacks to him, present day, telling a character called the Chronicler his story in his life. So you get his adventures as he's telling them, basically, but you're there. Like, you're there. It's not like just him saying the story constantly. You're there in the midst. There was Faye. I don't think there was a dragon in this book. I think that was the last book, but there was a dragon in the last book. The entire adventure with Tempe and him learning the culture, the mercenaries. I have never enjoyed fantasy writing more. Like, this was unbelievable, and I am so excited to read The Name of the Wind, reread it, that is, in January, because that is the Wyverns and Words book club for January. I am so excited, and I will be rereading this probably again in February, but hopefully I actually finish it. It doesn't take me another 11 months to reread it, but it's definitely a book you can reread over and over again because it is so long that you can catch more details and understand the world a little bit better each reread. Wow, I would sell my soul to be able to reread this book for the first time because it was just incredible. Oh, so good. These are all the books I read in December, plus the dust jacket of XOXO and the 2 books that I didn't own because I read on my phone. And yeah, I'm like quite happy with what books I read this month, and finishing the Wiseman Sphere was honestly the highlight of my year at this point. I really hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts. Maybe you found some of these books interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'd love to hear what y'all's favorite books were in December. Thank you so much to my lovely Patreons over on XOXO. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. It means the world to me. And thanks to y'all for watching all the way to the very end of this video. I really do hope to see you in the next one. Toodles!